Hey everyone, today I want to talk to you about a company that has been a staple in the Midwest for nearly 2 decades, Raber Portable Storage. If you're in need of quality storage solutions, look no further. Whether it's a barn, shed, or garage, Raber has the largest selection of handcrafted storage structures in all of Indiana. Each building is made with care by experienced craftsmen, ensuring you get a product that not only looks great, but is built to last. And guess what? They stand by their workmanship with a fantastic 5-year warranty. What sets Raber apart? It's their commitment to customer satisfaction. From the moment you step into one of their many locations, their friendly team is ready to help solve your storage issues. Plus, they deliver up to 250 miles from their main office in Montgomery, Indiana. So if you live in Ohio, Kentucky, or Illinois, you need to give them a call. Now, let me tell you about the heart behind Raber Storage. It all started back in 2000 when they began building sheds full-time. The founder grew up helping his father construct barns with just gas-powered skill saw and a lot of determination. Today, Raber has grown into a full-fledged operation with dedicated staff, but that personal touch still remains. They treat every customer like family. So if you're ready to find perfect storage solution, visit Raber Portable Storage. They have Indiana locations in Bloomington, Seymour, Vincent, Spencer, Corydon, West Lafayette, Sellersburg, and Kokomo, and even Tilton, Illinois. So you'll never have to go too far for quality storage. And hey, we got a deal for you today. If you mention you heard it from the podcast, Rabers will give you $150 off your barn purchase. That's right. You save $150 off your purchase by just mentioning you heard it here on the podcast. So check out their website at raberportablestorage.com. That's raberportablestorage.com to learn more and find your nearest location. Trust me, when you choose Raber, you're not just buying a shed, you're investing in quality craftsmanship and service you can rely on.
Let me begin. While there's still ink left in my pen, I'm set to contend. For truth, you can bet will offend. Deception within the church, man, who's letting them in. We talked about this years ago. Let's address it again. Yeah, and I ain't really trying to start beef, but some who claim to be part of the sheep got some sharp teeth. And cats get mean when you criticize them. But Jesus told us Matthew 7:16, we can recognize them.
This show is brought to you by Zach's Creamery in Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana. Zach's Creamery was founded with creating a pleasant and memorable experience in mind. They strive to serve the most exceptional homemade ice creams and signature coffees in an exuberant atmosphere. Zach's has something for everyone, as he features several items for those with special dietary needs such as vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, and no sugar-added, keto, diabetic friendly. Visit them today in Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana. You can dine in or drive through, but whichever way you choose, do not forget you can order online and have it waiting for you when you get there. Order online at zaxcreamery.com. That's Zach's Creamery, Z-A-X Creamery.com, and stop in at Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana. Is how you spend, save, and invest your hard-earned cash glorifying the Lord? Well, at Dominion Wealth Strategists, they believe that your finances should reflect your faith. As a distinctly reformed full-service wealth management firm, they are here to help you steward God's gifts wisely. From comprehensive financial planning to wealth-building strategies rooted in biblical principles, they offer their core services with no financial barrier to entry. Whether you're planning for retirement, building generational wealth, or just getting started, Dominion Wealth Strategists are here to guide you every step of the way. From baptism to burial, Dominion has you covered. Visit them at reformed.money. That's reformed.money, and take the first step toward financial stewardship that honors Christ. That's reformed.money. Please visit them today. Hello and welcome to the TC Cook Show on the Clearly Speaking Network. We are here at the Dangerous Friends Conference, and again, you guys are tired of me saying this, but it's so true. We've got another dangerous friend on the show by the name of, and you guys might have heard of him, I don't know, but by the name of Steve Deace. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it, man.
You bet, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you have been in, we'll call it the new media, right?
Yeah.
for a long time,
yeah.
And have been really a stalwart in Christians looking at the culture through a biblical worldview, right? Mm-hmm. And saying, here's what's happening and here's what can fix it, right? Mm-hmm. And you've been doing that for a long time. And so, one, thank you for doing that, because
thank you very much.
I know it's not easy. I know that
it's a great way to get popular.
Yeah, that's fair. It's,
yes.
You will definitely get a lot of emails, but does that mean they're good or bad?
That's very true.
You don't know, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but you haven't stood down, and you've continued to stand up. Not only that, you've continued to push and push and push, and so just really appreciate that. But I wanted to kind of talk to you today a little bit about, because we're talking about dangerous friends, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about having relationships with people who are willing to speak clearly, people who are willing to stand up for truth, knowing that they're going to lose people, they're going to get threats, they're going to get all, but they're still going to stand for the truth. But have you seen this? Because I feel like I've seen it. There, last couple of years, I would say, there's been a shift in some cultural things, right? And it seems like it's shifting more conservative, shifting more to conservative values, right? And Christians, there's Christians who are starting to actually say, you know what? We've been quiet for too long. Mm-hmm. It's time to start speaking up, mm-hmm. and people are resonating with it. Have you been seeing that same thing?
I have, but I actually think it's relatively recent. In the 2022 midterm elections,
yeah.
I was convinced, given the unpopularity of President Biden,
sure.
and his policies,
sure. Was this the red wave?
And I was convinced that this was going to be a replay of my childhood, the Contract with America election,
right.
and that's where you get a fired up base on our side, but then the normie, but what we like to call in my business, the normie voter,
right.
reaches their breaking point,
sure, and
joins with us, and that's how you get a wave,
mm-hmm.
okay? And when that did not happen outside of a couple of places, my home state of Iowa, right. Ron DeSantis' Florida.
Charlie Kirk was pushing hard too, right? He thought so too, right?
I mean, I was convinced of it.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
And I showed up for election night coverage at the Blaze. I'm wearing the Tiger Woods red, like it's Championship Sunday. All right, the tub of corn.
I don't remember that. That's
and by the end of that evening, we had to break up fist fights, and people nearly got canned. It was just all the energy just changed, and I walked away from that evening thinking, there may not be a breaking point for the normie American anymore, or I don't know how much further down the pit we could go for that to happen.
Yeah, I got you.
In this last election cycle,
yes,
I think we finally figured out what the breaking point for the normie American is.
And what is it?
And I think ultimately, it's similar to when I was a really little kid.
Yeah.
What happened with Jimmy Carter, and that is you can be corrupt, and you can be dumb, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be incompetent,
sure.
but you can't be corrupt, dumb, and incompetent, or two of those three, all right?
Right.
And in Jimmy Carter's case, he was incompetent and dumb.
Yeah.
And we just can't have that.
Right.
All right.
Right.
In the case of what happened with the Biden administration, they checked all three of those boxes.
That's fair. Yeah.
Corrupt, dumb, and incompetent.
Right.
To see people that do what I do for a living knew that the president had been showing
100%.
Major signs of dementia for years.
Correct.
But they all gaslit us and lied about it.
Right.
Then they wanted this debate, and the reason they wanted this early debate was because they wanted to test Biden's dementia
100%.
to see if it would last for a campaign.
100%.
But the problem was when he went out there and flashed that in front of 70 million people,
they couldn't hide.
They couldn't hide it anymore.
Right.
And then a lot of normies who don't listen to shows like mine or shows like yours or come to events like this or have any idea who any of us are, we're like, so you guys just lied to me about this for the last few years. And that's why they moved to essentially conduct a coup by removing him in broad daylight.
Correct.
Okay, and so this just pushed people too far with what's happening with the economy and things of that nature. I think that's a positive.
Okay.
But
it makes me question it though, can it last?
No. because this will be something I'll talk about when it's my turn here later tonight.
Sure.
You know,
I was going to cut out, and then I saw your time. So I'm not cutting out. I got to wait.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
so I'll try not to spoil it too much right now. But
no, you're good. You're good.
You know, when we had a revolution in America before, we had awakenings first.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. That gets established first.
You're right.
All right.
Okay.
And then you have corporate revolution. Yep. It requires the people to know King Jesus to then say we have no king but Jesus. All right. What we're seeing now cannot last, and this is the message I'm going to have here tonight.
Steve, I don't like hearing this
because here's where we're at. The culture is ahead of the church. And we're having revolution without awakening.
You can't have that.
That won't work.
Yeah, it will not last.
It won't work.
You're right.
At best, you'll have a French Revolution moment. And if you know the history of the French Revolution, when they got done, when power of the people, vote populi, got done overthrowing the aristocracy, they then turned to the church and said, well, you guys didn't defend us against this aristocracy. Right. You guys were tools and instruments of the aristocracy. Sure. So your heads are next going to roll in the guillotines. Yeah. Robespierre put the church in prison after after the aristocrats.
You're right.
And now we're going to have a reign of terror, and we're going to take the Virgin Mary out, not because we've reconnected with the Protestant Reformation, but because we're going to replace it with the goddess of reason instead. Yeah. And this is I hear a lot of friends of mine use the term Christless conservatism. Ooh. And this is what is ascending right now. Yeah. And that's where you'll get the right instincts, but from the wrong premise. And invariably, you are not going to fight emotion-based thinking with emotion-based thinking.
No, you're right.
You're not going to fight a narrative with another narrative.
You're
okay.
Right.
And the people are sinners. Mm-hmm. And there's only one transcendent institution God has ever given this planet, and it is the church.
That's right.
And without the church taking its place of discipleship, of moral guidance, then this won't last. It won't last. In fact, it'll be doomed to fail. And so this is where the church. And I've been
you've traveled.
I've been from MAGA skeptic to offered a job by Trump. I've had every position on the right that you could have in the last 10 years and not lose your mind. Okay? All right? But whatever you think of MAGA, it is doing more to stand for righteousness in the culture than the church is.
Which is why
and that's
won't
not
last.
Gonna, that cannot last. No.
So do you think though, because here's how I saw this election. I saw that God was giving us some breathing room. Mm-hmm. But what I fear and what I'm still, I mean, we're only 51, 52 days in, right? We're not that far in. But what I'm already seeing is a complacency. Mm-hmm. We had a huge high, right? Because we won and people are like, hey, this is great. And God's given us favor now and he hasn't turned us completely away. Because if we didn't win, that's the conclusion, right?
Yep.
God has said, hey, all right, you guys can have all the sin you want. I'm out, right?
Yeah, that's the Romans 1 tap out, basically.
Correct. Yeah. And so, but with the win, we're like, okay, America still has a chance, right? God's still seeing that. But with the complacency in the conservative party that I see, in the church that I see that's still here, and it went back so quickly.
Yep.
That breathing room's gonna dry up.
Agreed.
Right.
Yep.
Now, I particularly think that it's ours to lose as a Republican Party. Now, just talking Republican Party and politics, right? It's ours to lose. We have momentum. We have young kids who are dancing and doing stuff. Now, J.D. Vance has memes and stuff. Everybody's right, they're putting his face on stuff. It's like, okay, hold on. I think we could have 12 years because we could have J.D. Vance right after this 4 years of Trump, right? And J.D. Vance might have 8 years, right? That seems like a long time, but it's not. But there's at any point in time, Gavin Newsom looks like he's trying to shift center all of a sudden.
Yeah,
right.
It won't work. He has the right message, but the window of opportunity to do that on the Democratic side is closed.
Surely we're not.
That party is basically he started a civil war in his own party.
Sure.
But
you don't think he's trying to position himself?
Of course I do, but you have to win a primary before you can win a general election.
That's fair.
He cannot win a primary.
Do you
with
think
that message
J.D. Vance has that chance? As of right now, Democrats look like they don't really have any leader. They don't know who's coming up.
I agree that they don't. we also didn't know what a Barack Obama was at this point of 2005 or 2006.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And
that's fair.
The enemy's not going to look at the last election results and say that's just adorable. It looks like they're, getting their stuff together. Let's go pick on Greenland before Trump annexes that too. That's not how this works, And so, there's the principle Jesus gives where if you cast out a demon and you don't replace it with the Holy Spirit, 7 more just like it come back. This is what I'm talking about. And so you're correct. The window of what you're talking about does exist right now.
Right.
Okay.
But
and as much as, I'm a big believer that worldview is destiny. As much as Trump within the current, his worldview is capable, for the most part, he is attempting to take advantage of it. Sure, now, there are two things they have to do politically. If they don't do them, then it will stillborn his term. Okay. And one of them is they're going to have to finally say to the courts, you're not the supreme being. You have no power to enforce your edicts. We're not doing that. Take a flying leap. All right.
Wow.
If you don't do that, the courts are trying to tell you who you can hire and fire, trying to determine whether you give money to foreign governments or not.
Yeah, they're overstepping their bounds.
They're going to continue to just make, and it's a classic bully situation. Sure. Until you punch a bully back, they'll just keep bullying you. The other thing they'll have to do,
we know Trump doesn't like bullies.
No, right? But he's going to also then have to do something that really no one's done this really since Lincoln. Right. Yeah. This is why Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Right. It was meant as a way to check and balance the Dred Scott decision. Yep. The other thing is someone's got to get arrested. All right, someone has to be charged with crimes, because it's impossible to drain the entire bureaucratic swamp of Washington D.C. So you need to put them on, as the kids say today. You got to put them on blast. All right, do something more from our generation. You got to reenact the pilot episode of Happy Days. All right, and in the pilot episode of Happy Days, Fonzie says, "Would you like to step into my office?" And one idiot said yes. Went into the men's room, and an example was made. Which is why every single episode for the next 12 years of Happy Days, whenever Fonzie said, "You want to step into my office?" What was the answer? No. We're good. Yep. We're straight. We're all good here. Yep. Example has been made.
That's right.
An example must be made. There must be chains, orange jumpsuits, because the amount of bureaucrats that exist in these agencies that can stillborn an administration is immeasurable.
How much of this, though, can be worked through, can be done at a local level?
Not as much as you think.
Because
the culture.
You don't know this. County commissioner, just won. I beat an incumbent, right? And started in January. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking, literally coming from.
There
that
are some
side,
things
right?
you can do. I mean, I think that there was a famous sect within Rome known as Caledonia, I think is what it was called, and they were so far on the hinter regions, all right, that Caesar basically just let them do whatever they want, provided they paid tribute. Okay, and so when Trump got elected in 2017, he
likes tribute.
He does. Yeah. When Trump took the oath of office in 2017, there were fewer elected Democrats in public office nationwide than anywhere, and than we had since before the Great Depression. Right. How did life in the city of San Francisco change because Trump was president? Did they stop giving hotel rooms to tranny homeless people? Did they stop letting homeless people defecate on sidewalks?
No.
Did they just San Francisco'd on, right? Now, this is what you can do.
Right.
Where you guys are in control, you can say, we're not governable here. We're not Mike DeWine sonnets to COVID. We're not doing any of that here.
Right.
Okay. We're not giving toxic genetic serums to people here. Okay. And you can set up what the Sons of Liberty did before the Revolution.
See,
which is set up little pockets of resistance. Right. And the worst job you could have gotten in the court of King James in the early 1770s is if you drew the short straw and you were the guy that was going to go into the neighborhoods controlled by the Sons of Liberty and tell them, hey, the king is demanding this.
Right.
Because you'd be lucky if you walked out of there only tarred and feather. That was going to be the lightest thing that was going to happen to you. And so what we do when people like you get elected, what you need to do is set up local oases. We're not going to enforce any of that here. We're not putting any of that on our people. But ultimately, the creation runs on headship. And this is why if dad goes to church, the kids are more likely to go to church than if dad does not, right? And so you do have power, but invariably you cannot set up a permanent resistance to what's happening in Washington, D.C.
So and maybe it's a romanticized view, right? But I have a hope that that we can go from. And biblically speaking, even, a lot of times the Lord talks about a mustard seed, right? And it starts small and then it grows, right? Revolutions start small, they grow, right? All this stuff. Reformations start small, grow. And so I have this romanticized
Luther is
idea.
a largely unknown Augustinian monk. He nails 95 theses to a door asking for a disputation, which is an academic term for a debate. He has no idea he's going to be the History Channel's #2 man of the millennium. He has no clue. Yes.
Yeah, wasn't planning on that, right? Wasn't planning on churches being known as Lutheran churches, right? He wasn't planning on that. But I've taken that to the government side, and I'm trying to think that if we can get counties, then we can get the state. And if we can get the state, then we can get another state.
That I agree with.
And if we can get multiple states, then we get the whole country.
If we're talking about multiplication, now you're talking about what's the Great Commission? You start in Jerusalem, then to Judea, then Samaria. All right. So if we're talking about multiplication, which is we're going to establish a beachhead with the intent of expanding.
Correct.
That you can do.
Correct.
And you can make happen. We overturned Roe v. Wade because a constellation of states passed heartbeat bills, and that created enough critical mass that the Supreme Court felt like it had the cover to do something.
Correct.
Roe v. Wade was bad legal precedent 100%. For 40 years, but it didn't have the political cover to overturn it until those states grew into a coalition. That you can do.
Right.
But what you're not going to be able to do is create like a permanent oasis. You're not going to be able to do that. All right.
There's too much control in the federal government.
And we're up against a religion. These people are Jehovah's Witnesses with tanks. All right? So just like the Jehovah's Witnesses always make sure to find the most...
I laugh, but it's so true.
They look for the nicest summer Saturday to come and knock on your door and ruin your day, okay? That's exactly what the spirit of the age's acolytes look to do too.
So how then can people work towards and change? Because to change a federal government feels so overwhelming.
Yes.
To change a county is a lot of work, but not so overwhelming. Right. To change your state, if you can get other counties, seems less overwhelming than all 50 states, right? And you're not going to get all, but if you can get the majority, right? How does normal people who are just working every day, serving at their church, loving families, want to see a place where their kids can grow up and not have to deal with my daughter's a cat or my daughter's a dog or my daughter's wanting to be a man or my boys want to be, just wanting to live a godly life. What can they do?
I don't want to be trite, but I think events like this are key.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of times
it's a good way to mobilize. Right?
It is. I mean, whenever you go to, you're in an industry, they have what are called mixers.
Yes.
Just get people to know one another.
Yeah.
Because of the digital era, the social media era we're in now.
Yeah.
We're more connected to information than we've ever been. But we're more isolated from one another than we've ever been.
We can be an echo chamber.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, what the internet provides me is an opportunity where I can go online and find the version of me or versions of me that live kind of scattered, a mile wide but an inch thick.
Sure.
And then it gives me, I connect with them, I get affirmation that I'm not alone, but then I never venture out and actually connect like what Rosaria was just talking about. I went to my actual school board meeting, all right? So I avoid conflict, okay? And I look for affirmation from people who have the same laments that I do. And the problem with that is if it's 50 people in Wyoming and 2,000 people in Florida and 300 people in Washington State and 6,000 people in North Carolina, all right? If they're not a chat group, a Snapchat group, people sharing TikToks is not a movement. It can be, okay?
Sure.
It can be, but we have to actually get out of our homes and go where the battle is at. Like one example I'll give you.
Yeah.
So a guy I've known for years in my business, we worked together at CRTV before it merged with The Blaze, a guy named Dan Bongino.
Yeah,
right?
I know Dan. Yeah.
So today is Dan's last show. Right?
Yes, because he's
going to take over as deputy director of the FBI.
Right.
Now Dan already had a very influential perch. He has one of the largest shows American Right's ever seen.
Yep.
He built it. He literally started. When the NRA had its division and everything else, he was doing Facebook Lives from a glorified closet in his house in Florida. Seriously.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And from there, he built that into an empire. All right.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so he's going to set all that aside though, because here's the
Correct.
thing: can Dan connect with millions of people around the country?
Yep.
Yes. But here's the thing that he can't do, and this is why he's leaving that behind to go do the job at the FBI.
Right.
I can connect people, but I can't get on the front lines from up here. You see what I'm saying? I can't get on the front lines from a podcast. I can't get on the front lines from my TikTok page. All right. He's going to roll up his sleeves and get his hands dirty. And I think as men, that is the example that we have to follow, is ultimately continuing to connect with people around the world who think like us is great. But if we're not actually galvanized into a movement where we can make a difference within our own sphere of influence, it won't really make a difference.
And this is where, and I'm not just saying it because they're sponsoring this conference or whatever, but this is where like a Charlie Kirk, right, who is going to college campuses, literally talking to people, literally talking to the next generation, right? Yes, he's filming it. Yes, he's putting it on there, right? Yes, he has shows. He's with Gavin Newsom here recently. That's where I realized, oh shoot, Gavin's going left center now because he's trying to connect with the culture shift that it seems like we have, right? And so all this stuff's happening, but he's still getting his hands dirty, right? He's not just setting up in a room.
He's going where actual people actually are.
So he's converging it too, because here's what I you can push back on this because you know the culture way better than I do, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, we need more Christian influencers on social media. Right?
I agree.
We need that because here's what I'm watching. Just even my kids are watching these people. They're super clean, just fun guys, whatever. They might not be Christian, but they're building millions of followers. And then they all of a sudden release a candy, or they release a clothing line, or they get all the followers, and then those followers is a big tribe, and whatever you put out, they're going to purchase, buy, and do this, right? So take that same philosophy, have Christian influencers rising up, and then when we say, hey, we're going to go meet at the State House because there's an abortion thing going on, they follow and they join because you're similar. They have that like-minded thing, right? Yeah. That's what I'm seeing that we need more of. Is that fair?
I totally fair. I would actually argue that what the reason why TPUSA has been so successful is it's not just that Charlie goes and will have direct interactions with people, but they're actually putting people on the ground where key votes around the country take place. So if I were starting a church, right, could I reach if I just had a church that just was on TikTok? Could I maybe reach more people than I could ever fit into a single sanctuary? Yes. Right. But correct. Am I really their pastor? Correct. If I'm not there when their kid is sick in the ER, if I'm not there to bury their wife with them at their funeral, if I'm not there to confirm their children,
you can't visit their hospital if they're in the hospital. You can't.
I might be teaching the Word of God to lots of people, but I'm not really pastoring a congregation. I have to be there. Right. Okay. Right. And that is really what is missing. Is we're reaching that we can reach a wide swath of people, but are we really there where real life is happening?
We have to use that as a tool to reach those people, but then we have to also then actually start to rub shoulders with those same people, right? And this is Tucker Carlson taking his show on the road, right? And actually seeing people in the audience and he has this huge following. He said, hey, Fox, people are coming to watch because of me. I can take that and jump on social media and still get that and got more, actually more views than what he ever did there, right? And then he went and said, hey, I'm going to actually go to towns and cities with my podcast or my show during the campaign, right? You remember that? And he was rubbing shoulders. I'm not saying he's like fixing problems, but you know what I mean? Sure. He's getting out there face to face with them and not just staying there. That's what we have to have. When I say Christian influencer, that's what we have to use. I agree. Right? And so, and you do this, right? Your show gets lots of views, and then you go to all these conferences and you speak and you get to see the people who watch your show like me, right? All the time and graciously come on my podcast, right? Doesn't do anything for you, but it does a lot for me, so I appreciate it. But it's like you're doing that, and if we can grow that, I'm telling you, I really believe that we can take this, and not just that, Christians building businesses, right? Who are hiring. Yeah, people.
Now you're talking about Calvin City within a city, basically.
Yes. If we have this breathing room, we've got to use it.
I agree.
We've got to use it.
I think your vision is right, but let me just add. Yes. Ultimately, there's no substitute for the local church. Ultimately, 100%. There must be the teaching and preaching of word and sacrament. And that is the direct connection.
Right.
I'm vehemently
100%.
against churches on multiple campuses. You're not that special. You're not that good of a pastor that we need to franchise you. I am confident we could find someone in a community that God could call.
You can church plant with someone.
You can plant
absolutely.
a church. We don't need to franchise your church.
Absolutely.
You're not that special.
Right. I get
but you cannot have a church where the guy is. You have the leader doing everything except that which gives him the most respect, the preaching and teaching of word and sacrament. He's basically a glorified administrative assistant.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So, but because ultimately, and it goes back to where we started our conversation,
yes.
we can't do this without the local church.
Correct.
We just can't, because that is the primary vehicle by which people plug in to the kingdom of God.
And I mean, if you look through the Old Testament, and you look at Israel, you look at how they would turn, and God would discipline and punish, right? And then they would come back, and they would come back for a short time, and then they'd turn again. It's like I'm seeing that with that, like this little shift in the culture is great. I am celebrating it, right?
Yep.
But I think like Rosaria Butterfield said, she said, don't chop off the ear, you got to chop the head off of all these idols.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
And we have all of these idols. And she said this, she said, we are now in the LGBTQ issue, we're now, I don't like the T, right? The T's too far.
Yep.
I mean, I know gay people that are saying, ugh, that's too far. This needs to stop. But yet we are not okay. We're pacifying then the LGB part.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that to me is something that we got to be careful with.
Agreed.
You know?
But political movements make calculations like that. All right, and
Trump did, right?
That's what happens when MAGA is ahead of the church.
That's correct.
Okay,
that's correct.
Church is a transcendent institution, meaning that it exists outside of what we comprehend as space and time.
Yeah.
All right, similar to when Voltaire said he's going to outlive the Bible, and the French Geneva Bible Society bought his house, and they've been printing Bibles out of it since 200 years since he died. Right. That's what I mean by a transcendent. So that you have the benefit of knowing you are staked in eternity.
That's right.
I'm not going to succumb to the fads or the whims of the culture. If we let a political movement, and I say this as someone that has spent my career going all over the country trying to engage and mobilize evangelicals to get involved, okay?
Yeah, you have.
But if you let a political movement be the tip of the spear, that will not work. Yeah. Political movements make calculations.
Yep.
Okay? Churches stand in the gap. All right? And that's why we need the church.
So last point I'm going to make, and tell me what you think, and we'll wrap this up, but is I think a lot of we'll go political even, right, have put all their stock into Trump. And what I've even said as I've been getting deeper into local politics and all this stuff, we've almost become a one-trick pony, right? Which is let's ride the coattails of Trump. I mean, many people have rode those coattails to get elected in higher offices, right? They really have.
Yep.
He's only got 4 years left.
Yep.
Now I'm not JD Vance. I think will do great.
Legitimately,
right?
it's possibly has 1 year left. If this year is not successful, they'll lose the midterm elections the next year, and then the Democrats will still born the rest of the administration.
That's fair to say. And
so, Trump agrees with that. He's been saying that. That's why I think you're watching him work at a breakneck pace. He sees that.
This is also why it's really rough to see him call out Thomas Massey when I firmly agree with what Massey's saying. But whatever, that's aside. So we got to be careful. And this is what you're saying: a political movement has an end. It always will. Look at the Democrats right now. They're in chaos because they thought they had the culture and that didn't work. Right? Something. They went too far. And so they always have an end, but the church does not have an end. And so we have to. You're spot on. We have to keep rooting what we do, what we speak on in biblical truth, and we have to keep promoting and saying the church. God instituted the church for a reason.
Yes.
And let's do what we're supposed to do with the word, the sacraments. Let's do that, and let's rise up to actually share the truth from the pulpit, right? Not just a pacification.
Not Sunday night you come back and the people that are the most committed come back on a Sunday night. But from the pulpit corporately.
Hey Steve Deace, can you come to our church, but just Sunday night?
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, man, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on the show.
You bet, man.
It's been phenomenal, and I'm excited to hear you talk, but I appreciate you being here, taking time. time just to be here to share at the Dangerous Friends Conference. Guys, all you got to do is type in Steve Deace. You will find him if you haven't already. I've seen him. He's everywhere. You can see him everywhere. He has a daily show. You can watch him. Go watch his movie. Nefarious has been out for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Working on the sequel right now, actually.
Incredible.
Yeah.
By the way, go check that out. It's on Prime, a video
Yep.
that I've seen it on.
Yep.
And so go check it out there. But Steve, we appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
You got it, brother. God bless.
Guys, as always, we love you. We appreciate it. And we'll see you again next time.